I'm going to talk about Providence and about the why evil exists. So evil only exists because good exists. So if there was no good, it would not be possible for there to be evil, because something can only be called evil if it is a harm to good. Um, because of this, evil can only be considered an absence of good, like dark is the absence of light. So God does not will evil, but only permits it as a side effect of what is good. For example, we have free will that God gave us, and that is good that we have free will, but free will allows us to choose to do evil things, and that's a bad side effect. But the good is sufficient enough good to warrant allowing the evil side effect. Um, Another thing is that if you recall, I made a video about morality. In Morality Part 1, I talked about how an act that has an evil side effect can still be morally good if at least the good effect of the act happens at least as immediately in the order of causality as the bad effect, and if the good effect is sufficiently desirable to compensate for allowing the bad effect. Um, and God follows that rule in His creation. Evil can exist, but the good is always greater. Also, evil cannot frustrate God's plan. So God is all powerful. And God in His power can always make a greater good come out of any evil. This, of course, does not give us permission to commit evil for some sort of greater good. In fact, we're still punished for evil acts. And we're not allowed anyway to commit an evil so that some good can happen at some later time in the order of causality. We should instead always cooperate God in making good come out of evil. In other words, making good come out of evil is not just for God to do, it is for us to do as well as God's co-workers. God also makes use of our weaknesses. So consider an employer, right? An employer looking for an employee is looking for strengths. But God doesn't look for strengths because God doesn't need our strengths. Instead, God looks for weaknesses. Right? God is all powerful. He doesn't need our strengths, but our weaknesses are useful to God because God doesn't have weaknesses. So we see many examples in Scripture of God deliberately calling the weak, even though He could have called the strong. For example, God called Moses. Moses couldn't speak very well, but God asked Moses to negotiate with Pharaoh for the Israelites, right? So how did God use that? God used that so Moses, in his failure to persuade Pharaoh, created an opportunity for God to show forth his power, right? God chooses the weak so that His own strength will be revealed. Another well-known person is David, um, later called King David, but he was originally a shepherd. God made him a king when he had no experience at all. A couple other examples that you can read about. If you should read about Gideon from the book of Judges, Jonah from the book of Jonah, and Joseph from the book of Genesis. And so with that, that is what I had to say about providence and the mystery of evil. So may God bless you.